Strange Brew Podcast, Season 1, Episode 322. Kind of an unusual Monday, not a Victory Monday. We had a Victory Friday podcast, but the Packers coming off of a win Thanksgiving Day in Detroit, sitting at 8-3-1. Bears get a win in Philly on Friday. That was an impressive victory for Chicago, who they have not had a lot of impressive victories so far this year. A lot of wins, but against bad teams, close games. That was not the case on Black Friday. And that comboed up with a Rams loss in Carolina yesterday means that this weekend's Packer-Bear game is huge. And we haven't had a lot of those, as we talked about heading into Viking weekend in my lifetime. If you're in your late 30s, early 40s, I prefer late 30s, but sadly, it is now early 40s for me. Packer-Viking games, I think, have had a lot better games over the past 2.5, 3 decades, even though the Packer-Bear rivalry is the one that is more rich in history. We've had some really memorable games, the 2010 NFC title game and the de facto 2013 NFC North Championship game, but beyond that, luckily, in my lifetime, it's been a rivalry kind of dominated by the Packers and Favre and Rodgers. Well, we've got a game coming up this weekend with some big stakes on it now. 9-3 Bears, 8-3-1 Packers at Lambeau Field. Packers open as 5.5-point favorites. We will, by the way, have Packer line highlights. Now that I'm back in the studio, we can get that tagged on at the end of the podcast. I do want to play you some of the Matt LaFleur locker room audio coming out of the win in Detroit on Thanksgiving Day. But yeah, Packers-Bears, it is a sizable matchup coming up Sunday at Lambeau Field. We'll discuss a little bit of that as well. We'll talk some about the Badgers and Gophers. Had a real chance to hit the offseason with a ton of momentum, having beaten a couple of top 25 teams. If you get Paul Bunyan's axe back, you finish 5-7, and you're on the uptick heading into the offseason. That's not what happened in Minnesota. Snow game in Minnesota on Saturday. Inexplicably, the Badgers, despite not really having a quarterback, decided to throw the ball a ton in adverse weather conditions. Okay, I'm not sure why they did that. The Badgers lose 4th time in 5 games. They have lost the Axe game to P.J. Fleck and the Gophers, so not the best way to hit the offseason, but I think there's some positivity with those 2 top 25 wins. They end their year 4-8. The bowl is totally out of the question. There was a chance had they won on Saturday and a bunch of other things happened, they could have still been in a bowl game, but that is obviously on the out now. And now we get set for 2026, a lighter schedule, maybe some money spent on a quarterback that can stay on the field and stay healthy. That would be great too. We'll go over that. And the Bucs got Giannis back on Friday, lost in New York, beat Brooklyn on Saturday. That ended a 7-game losing streak. They are in Washington tonight. Kevin Porter Jr. also marked his return over the weekend. So finally getting healthy at 9-12. Need to pile up some wins now in the month of December. Let's go.
On the ground, a chance here. Durham to Hardy to first. Hit time! Yes! The Brewers win! Yes!
Here comes Melvin to the 25, to the 20, Gordon 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Wisconsin! Record-breaking run!
Morgan, a smash up the middle, base hit to center! Here comes Gomez! Around third! A throw and the Brewers win!
Here's the snap. He looks, he throws, it's complete interception. And there is your Super Bowl dagger!
Booker the drive, gets inside, leads in, knocked away and stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has to foul, on a pinnacle ball, throws it down. Swinging fly ball in the right center. Broxton is there, and they're the champions. They have done it. It's been a 50-year journey. Wisconsin, we've got a room at the top of the world tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions.
Yeah, welcome in Monday morning. We did get our first snowstorm of the year. I know we talked about that on Friday heading into said snowstorm, but you never quite know how those are going to hit. Woke up on Saturday morning. We had some friends in town, had a great time Friday night. Woke up Saturday morning, and a little light snow coming down, not a big deal. And it never really fully went like blizzard whiteout conditions, but it was just death by paper cuts. It was just a consistent, steady light snow from about 8 or 9 in the morning on Saturday until about 5 or 6 in the morning on Sunday. And as the day went on, it just piled up slowly. And eventually, I think we got between 8 to 10 inches maybe in our area. And I think most of our Sheboygan County listening area on the B93 Morning Show had about that 6 to 8 or 8 to 10 probably on the high side. Well, yeah, first big snowstorm. As we talked about on Friday, though, I didn't mind it. I'm born and raised here. I think you know at this point that it's going to be anything goes starting after November 1st, right? That's about once you get past Halloween and sometimes even before that, but especially once you flip the calendar to November, even though we're not technically in winter for another 3 weeks, or 3 weeks from yesterday, I think is when winter starts. You just know once you get to November, anything's in play. You could have a tornado. You could have a snowstorm. You could have a wind chill advisory. Hurricanes are kind of out of the question, but maybe in 20 or 30 years, who knows? Who knows what the way things are changing out there? But you just know any winter weather is in play, even though on November 1st, you're still 8 weeks basically away or 7 weeks away from actual winter hitting on December 21st. But we got that first big snowstorm over the weekend. We had some single-digit temperatures we're waking up to here this morning. But like I said on Friday, I didn't mind it. I don't mind winter. It's not my favorite time of year. I don't hate it like some people do. But one thing I don't mind is if you get a snowstorm like that and it's not during the week and you're not having to drive in it, get to work in it, leave a half an hour earlier or an hour earlier, get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to snow blow a spot out for you to get out of your driveway. As long as I'm not doing that, I don't mind it so much. You know, we sat there basically the entire day on Saturday, went for a walk to get a coffee in the morning. My wife and I basically said to each other, well, that's probably the only thing we're going to get done today, as it was starting to pile up already. And then we just watched some TV. We watched some shows we wanted to catch up on. We watched a really crappy Netflix Christmas movie. It was fine. What was it called? Champagne Problems with Minka Kelly from Friday Night Lights. That was fine. Had a cocktail or two, and then you just kind of sat and watched the snow pile up outside. We did lose power briefly overnight. I don't know if anybody else out there did or anybody else out there is a person that cannot sleep without a fan going. Even in the dead of winter, I don't care if we have a wind chill advisory and it's minus 40 wind chill. I must sleep with a fan on at all times. I don't know when that started for me. It must have started when I was a kid, but I don't think I always had one on. I know I was that way by college. I know when I went to Point, and the fan that we have in our room now, is the desk fan that I bought at Kmart in Stevens Point when I was 19 years old. So that must have been about where it started, where I had it on all the time. You know, no air conditioning in those college houses, so we had the fans running 24/7. And then I think that just carried over at some point where I needed to have it on to fall asleep or to stay asleep. And that exact same fan, I always tell my wife, this fan has seen some stuff. This fan has seen me at some very low points and seen me at some very high points. This $19 desk fan I bought at Kmart on Main Street in Stevens Point in 2003 still works beautifully. And that's the one we have sitting on a dresser drawer that runs pretty much all night. In winter, we don't actually have it oscillate. It's not on us the way it is in summer. It has to be pointed in a different direction because it is kind of colder in the room in winter. But it has to be on. So I think at 3:30 in the morning on Sunday, I woke up from a dead sleep. I mean, a coma sleep. And the reason I woke up is because the power went off for about 10 minutes. But that means the fan in the bedroom also obviously shuts down. And I woke up and my heart kind of skipped a beat because I thought, what the hell is going on? What's weird here? Did I lose my hearing? Honestly, I think that crossed my mind as I'm coming out of stage 5 REM sleep and it is deathly quiet in the room. What happened? Where am I? What year is it? Felt like Jumanji. What year is it? And then it dawned on me, oh, the power must be out because the fan is not rolling. And then about 10 minutes later, it kicked back on and I was... I could calm down. Now, I do have an app on my phone in case we go to a hotel, which we're going to later this week. We'll talk about the podcast schedule coming up here, but we'll be in New York Thursday, Friday, Monday. But if you end up in a hotel room that doesn't have a fan or one of those industrial strength air conditioners that always has a fan running that you can dip the temperature to like 55 degrees in your room or below that, I think just about. If you don't have one of those, I always have an app on my phone called Sleep Fan that we can have running in the background too. And I was just about to turn that on when the power cranked back on and we got our actual fan going again. So we did lose some power, but it wasn't so bad. You woke up Sunday morning, we watched a little CBS Sunday Morning, and then like everybody, we got outside, got the shovels out, got the snowblower out. I do think there were a lot of guys, a lot of dudes in our neighborhood that got to fire up their 2-stage for the first time in a long time, and you heard those getting revved up on Saturday and Friday, even just to make sure everything was working the way they wanted it to. But there was a little Tim the Tool Man Taylor glint in every guy's eyes out there with that snowblower going, yeah!
Oh, yeah.
Snow, baby! Yeah. And I think on a Sunday morning especially, if you don't have things to do, now I know there are people out there that listen to the B93 morning show, that listen to the podcast, say, I had to work over the weekend or whatever, and I get it. But I think if you had that where you had off all weekend and you got to enjoy the snow coming down stress-free on Saturday, get out there, get a little exercise, get the shovel out and the snowblower out, take your time, have a cup of coffee, maybe take a break, help the neighbors out. But I think there was a little bit of that going on in our neighborhood after that first big snowstorm. Yeah, we didn't measure it. I'd say we probably had 8 or 9 inches in our area, and a little more coming today. Half an inch to an inch today, half an inch to an inch on Wednesday. It does feel like we're getting hit over the head here pretty quickly. And we even had on Wednesday, the biggest travel day of the year in southeastern Wisconsin, about a half an inch of kind of wintry mix came down, and the winds got up to 50, 55 miles per hour. That made roads really rough Wednesday night. So we've kind of gotten a fair taste of it here at the beginning of the year, late November, early December. But welcome to your Monday. So not a Victory Monday, obviously. We did the Victory Friday podcast coming out of the win in Detroit. Third straight Thanksgiving Day win for the Packers. Beat Detroit in 2023, beat Miami last year, and then beat Detroit again this year. But because I did the coffee table podcast where we were not having access to all the different equipment we have access to and the editing software we have access to in the studio here, there were a few things I did want to play you. One that we referenced on Friday, and that was all of the Madden stuff that was going on during the Packer game, during the CBS game, the Cowboys-Chiefs game, and then that night for the Bengals-Ravens game. Every network did some kind of John Madden tribute, and they had the patches on their jersey. I thought it was awesome. I know, like we said on Friday, some people said that they felt like it was Madden overload, which when you do it only on that day, I could see if it was every week, and they did something every game just about, but they only do it on Thanksgiving Day for the 3 games on Thanksgiving Day. But I mentioned on Friday, one of my favorite clips during the Packer game was they went back into the archives, the old Fox archives, and they unearthed the 1997 footage, November 27th, 1997, where Madden introduced the world to turducken. And
again, a happy Thanksgiving. Look, we got a fan back there, but we got a...
Speaking of fans, a huge, mid-90s, a huge white box fan. That's what Summerall's referencing there, which also fit perfectly because Madden strikes me as the kind of guy. Madden strikes me as a sweat guy. And even though it was probably cool is that the old Silverdome they run in 97? Probably. I think that was still the Silverdome. He does strike me as a guy who always has a fan on him.
Turducken, right?
Yeah. This is a turducken right here where we got... You know what a turducken is? A turducken, this thing here, is a deboned duck stuffed in a deboned chicken stuffed in a deboned turkey with stuffing. Now you're talking. And that has 8 legs.
The legs got to have a bone, doesn't it? It can't be deboned if it's got legs.
No, then we put the legs on it. See, and you just kind of cut this right down the middle, and then you cut sideways, and you get a little turkey and a little chicken and a little duck. Now that's there. That's turducken. Then over there, we have the turkey. See, now here's the turkey. We got 1 leg, 2 legs, 3 legs, 4 legs, 5 legs, 6 legs. So 6 of these legs or 1 of these legs or 2 of these 6 legs are going to be given to someone. I mean, whoever you want to give them to.
That is like Frankenstein's monster. And Madden is Dr. Frankenstein when it comes to cured meats. I just couldn't believe that all the different stuff he had in that footage. That was hilarious. Then I did want to play you the LaFleur locker room audio, which we talked about again on Friday, but didn't have a chance to play you.
How'd that turkey taste? Yes! That is how you compete. That was playoff football. It took all 60 minutes, all 3 phases. Give it up for yourself, man. That's what it's going to take moving forward, too. I got 3 game balls, man. I got 3 game balls today. This first guy, he threw 4 tutties on the day.
Not the guy. Overrated.
Hey, man, like we said, man, love you boys, man. I'm thankful on this day to do this. And, man, come out. Hey, O-line, man. No sack, boy.
This next guy had 2.5 sacks, and in doing so becomes the first guy in NFL history to have 12 plus sacks in his first 5 years.
Monster.
Take that one over.
Just truthfully, just coming on this day, playing this game, I just realized I'm just thankful for everybody, bro. Like, truthfully, I'm thankful
I'm thankful to be in this position. I'm thankful that the organization believed in me and brought me here, and that I could do these special things with you guys. So let's just keep doing these special things, dog. I'm here with y'all. Man, y'all know I'm going 100% every time for y'all, so just know that. And we're going to get this done.
Mike is like that guy if you ever do on Thanksgiving, and we don't do this, but if you ever have a situation where you're at Thanksgiving and you go around the table and then the person right before you takes what you're going to say, that was kind of Mike in there. I just want to say I'm thankful for all of you. Damn it, that's what I was going to say. Now what am I going to say?
This last guy. This guy had 6 for 90. Bring it up!
Tavian getting mobbed.
It's the best day to tell y'all boys I'm thankful for everybody in here.
See, Mike already took it.
There's a lot of people that keep me in it. And I'm thankful for that. I never take this for granted. We just gotta keep this going.
I'm buying more. Give me more. Give me more Dontavian stock. Why don't we went over that on Friday? But I have been holding my stock now for 18 months, and it feels like it's finally making a little bit of money. I'm seeing a little bit of ROI, or at least back to even, or at least back to level where I could get my money back if I sold it, but I'm not going to. Diamond hands on the Dontavian Wick stock. That was fun audio coming out of the win Thursday in Detroit that gets the Packers to 8-3-1. Now, let's take our lap around the NFL. This might be a little bit of a shorter podcast just because, we already did the whole Packer recap on Friday, but starting on Friday, Black Friday, I know we said on the air on a couple of different morning shows on Wednesday maybe. I forget if we talked about this on the podcast on Friday, but Bears, Eagles, I was rooting for the Eagles to win this just because order of operations, okay? First, you solidify the playoff spot. Then you solidify the division. Then we worry about 1 seeds or 2 seeds or home field or whatever. So knowing going into Thursday that they were a half game back of the Bears, I wanted the Bears to lose because if the Bears lost, that means the Packers are in first place by a half game in the division coming out of Friday. So I was rooting for the Eagles in Philadelphia, and it felt like that was going to be the first real test for the Bears because so far it had been a lot of wins against bad teams and barely beating those bad teams, no pun intended, but kind of intended. And I don't think a lot of people believe, outside of Chicago, a lot of people, despite an 8-3 record going into Friday, a lot of people did not have a huge belief in the Bears and kind of thought like I did, okay, they're going to take on the defending Super Bowl champions in Philly on a Black Friday, the standalone game, all eyes on them. They'll find out against a good team and a good defense now how hard it is. And I reluctantly have to tip my cap to the Bears. They went in there and just I'll smack you in the mouth on Neil Diamond. They smacked Philadelphia in the mouth. And they took it to them pretty much the entire game, 24-15, to the point where, not that it takes a lot for Eagles fans to boo, not a hard push, don't threaten me with a good time. They're basically waiting for any reason to boo. But I'm pretty sure with how inept that Eagle offense looked on Friday, I think basically every Eagle offensive play, not drive, after every play from the mid-second quarter, late second quarter on, they just got booed after every play. And it was a miserable crowd in Philly on Black Friday. Again, not having to push them too far to get there, but you have to give credit to the Bears. They went on the road and got their most impressive win by a wide margin and closed the deal in the fourth quarter. Caleb Williams is okay, turned the ball over once, but that Bear running game, 47 carries, 281, 6 yards a carry, and a couple of touchdowns. Kyle Monangai had a great day at 130. DeAndre Swift had 18 carries, $125. And that Eagle defense is not bad. Go back to that Packer-Eagle Monday night game. We talked about that yes, it was a frustrating night. You only scored 7 points, and you had the chance for more, but couldn't get it done. But a part of that, as a part of the discussion we had about that, is that Eagle defense is a top 10, top 5 caliber defense, and the Bears just shoved it right down their throat the entire game. Didn't pass for a whole lot, but didn't need to. 47. Now, that is a Wisconsin Badger 2010 rush line. 47 carries, 281, 6 yards a carry, and 2 touchdowns. So the Bears get a win. That gets them to 9-3. Then we get to the Sunday slate, which was yucky. After I got in from snowblowing and shoveling, I thought, I'll turn on whatever NFL game is on, hoping to get 2 on right out of the gate. The only game that was on was Niners-Browns. Now, I did have the Browns as we went over for gambling picks on Friday. I had them to cover, and they were hanging around, but just couldn't quite get it done. We went 2-2 on the 4 picks, so again, we're still hovering, 24, 22, and 1 or 2 then? coming out of Sunday. So I did have a little skin in the game, literally, but it was just, this is the only game we get to watch. I almost bought, because now with only whatever it is, 5 weeks left, you can buy the entire NFL plan on YouTube TV for, I think, a total of $140 or $150. So you get every game then, and I would have that for the remainder of the year. But because we're 75% of the way through the year, it's pretty affordable to get it now. I almost did that yesterday just because I thought, if I'm going to sit here all day and I can't do anything outside really after we got done snowblowing and shoveling, I want to be able to watch more games than this. So the Niners got to win. Now, there are two futures bets I have that we've talked about extensively here that have some life to them after yesterday. Number one is that Niners to win the NFC West bet. They win 26-8. Their defense was great. Not that Browns offense is fantastic, but the Niners get that win. They are 9-4 now, and then the stunner of the day was the Panther win over the LA Rams. Now, remember back to when the Packers lost to the Panthers, and everybody was losing their minds about how bad of a loss it was, and then I will grant you the next week, the Panthers losing at home to a one-win Saints team didn't make me feel any better about that Packer loss to Carolina. But the Panthers, 10.5-point home underdogs, they beat the Rams, and heading into the weekend, like we talked about, and we weren't the only ones. The Rams were 9-2, and they were lighting the world on fire. So the Rams go to Carolina and lose as 10.5-point road favorites, 31-28, and Bryce Young had a tremendous day for Carolina. So all of a sudden, Carolina is 7-6, and they're still on the outside looking in. I think they're 2 games back, but they're in the playoff conversation, and they're at least in the conversation to finish at or around 500. So maybe that Packer loss to Carolina isn't the worst loss in the world. Still not great, but it's not like, I think if you go back to the Browns loss, probably being worse there. But they are 7-6 coming out of that game. And the Rams fall to 9-3. Now, we talked about when the Rams were 9-2, and I think we said either on the last podcast or last Monday's podcast, when you look at who could finish as the 1 seed in the NFC, it just felt like when you looked at that Rams schedule and then based on the way they were playing, they were going to go 13-4. But when we went through that schedule and added up what we thought would be wins and losses, I definitely had this Carolina game as a win. So all of a sudden, and Seattle beat, who was the starting quarterback for Minnesota yesterday? What an unmitigated disaster in Minnesota. You hate to see it. You hate to see it happen. 26-0 win for Seattle, and it was all based on defense. I think Max Brosmer was the starting quarterback. Sounds like a made-up name. Sounds like a player you'd make up and create a player on Madden. But that was their quarterback, a rookie, I think, an undrafted rookie for the Vikings yesterday, as McCarthy was still in the concussion protocol. But Seattle wins 26-0. So coming out of yesterday in the NFC West, you've got Seattle at 9-3, the Rams at 9-3, and my Niners are there at 9-4. So I thought that ship had sailed. I still think it's not likely they're going to win that division, but they split the 2 games with the Rams. So that's the tiebreaker right now with them. I guess it would go to what then? Conference record? What is the conference record? And the Niners are 8-2 in the conference, and the Rams are 4-3. So right now, the Niners would have the tiebreak with the Rams, and right now, the Niners have the tiebreaker with Seattle, having beaten them in the head-to-head. They play each other, I think, the final game of the regular season. God, the division could come down to that. And it's in San Francisco. So San Francisco at 9-4, they've got a 1-win Tennessee in San Fran after a bye week. They've got the bye week this week, late bye week. Then you've got a now 1-win Tennessee team at home after that. Then so you figure 10-4 there. Then they're at Indy. I don't know what to make of Indy right now. And then at home against the Bears and at home against Seattle. So coming off of a late bye week, they finished their season 3-4 at home. If they can go 12-5, I mean, 1 loss in there, and they've got the tie breaks. If they go 12-5 and win 3 of their last 4, if one of those wins is the finale against Seattle, I think they can maybe win that division again. So I had that written off as a loss, and that's looking like it's very much back alive. That's the Undertaker's sit-up gif. But the Niners got to win in Cleveland. Jaguars, thank God we didn't bet on the Jaguars against Tennessee. That Titan team. 25-3 win for the Jags. They're 8-4. I still don't believe in them. They're kind of like the AFC Bears to me. They're 8-4, and they're right in the thick of things. They are tied with now Indy for the lead in the AFC South, and they have the tiebreaker there. So right now, the Jaguars would be the AFC South Division championships, but I don't believe in them. The biggest game for me in terms of a future yesterday was Texans-Colts. Texans got to win. C.J. Stroud came back, but that Houston defense, Daniel Jones did play, and he actually played okay with that fractured fibula. But that Texans defense, when you look at the 2 sides of the football for every team in the NFL, The best offense, the best defense. Who's got the best single unit? I think you almost have to go, or at least put in the conversation, as the best single unit in the NFL. I think you have to put Packers special teams in there now. You have to put the Texans defense in there up against any other team's defense or any other team's offense. It is that good. They beat the Colts on the road 20-16. So now the Colts and Jags are 8-4. Colts have lost 2 in a row. And the Texans are a game back at 7-5. And they've got one more with Indy still coming. That's in Houston. I don't know who has the tiebreak between Jacksonville and Houston right now. The Texans, they lost to Jacksonville early in the year and then beat Jacksonville in early November, so that'll come down to conference record too. That is a split. And right now, just on the head-to-head, they just won. They have the tie break with Indy. What is the conference record for, this is compelling radio, if you're a Packer, Badger, Bucks fan, this breakdown, this intimate breakdown of the AFC South has to be riveting. They have, Texans are 6-2 in the conference. The Jaguars are 5-2. So right now, you have the tiebreak there. So they're only a game back. And that looked like it was a dead pick for a while. So the Texans to win their division and the Niners to win their division. I feel like I'm kind of back. I feel much better about the Texans one just because their defense is star-studded. And the schedule's a little lighter. And they have one more game yet against Indy. I feel like that's more in play. But yeah, the Niners are very much alive in the NFC West now after that win combined with the shocking Rams loss. If the Rams just keep rolling the way we expect them to, I would say that's pretty much dead. But that Carolina win over LA has us right back in that game. Dolphins all of a sudden are kind of hot. They beat the Saints 21-17. They're 5-7 as Mike McDaniel saved his job. I don't know. Jets going to win against Atlanta in a game that, 27-24. That would have been that game that I would have ended up watching probably on the Sunday ticket or whatever it's called. Buccaneers get a win against the Cardinals 20-17. They're 7-5 on the year. And the Bills over Pittsburgh 26-7. So did you see our boy Aaron Rodgers? Oh, man, it's getting rough. So he played in that game yesterday, or started the game. And we talked about he had multiple fractures. They're saying 3 fractures in his non-throwing wrist. But he's saying, I'm going to play through it. And he has a huge cast then on his left wrist, his left hand, and his left forearm, really, but he's playing through it. I had the game on. It was 10-7, wasn't it? Or 7-3, maybe. Pittsburgh was in front. And Rodgers goes back to pass and does not sense that Joey Bosa is right on his back. He kind of shifts around the pocket, and Joey Bosa is honing in on him. And Bosa leaps on him. We talk often about Micah Parsons being a hungry lion on the Serengeti. That's what Joey Bosa jumped on Rodgers like a Cocker Spaniel on a turkey bone on Thanksgiving Day. I mean, he just launched himself on his back, drives him into the turf. He fumbles it. Bills pick it up, recovered for a touchdown. But then you look back, and Rodgers is down. And not only is he grabbing at that injured left wrist, Bosa hit him so hard and smooched his face into the ground so hard. Rodgers almost never has that chin strap on. That used to drive my wife crazy when he was a Packer player because it's there for a reason, she'd say. Well, the reason is if you get tackled from behind and you get your face driven into the ground, you have some stability there so the helmet doesn't smash down on your nose, which is exactly what happened. So they cut to Rodgers. I shouldn't laugh, but they cut to Rodgers. He's grabbing at that injured wrist. He's got blood dripping down his nose. And they took a still picture of him on the sideline, or the camera got to him and somebody screenshotted it. And I'm telling you, Aaron Rodgers looks like Joe Pesci in Home Alone. He could be a cast member of the Wet Bandits. What was it? Was it the Wet Bandits, then the Sticky Bandits? I forget which one was first. I think the Wet Bandits was first. Then the Sticky Bandits was Home Alone 2. He looks like Joe Pesci at the end of Home Alone 1. He's got a bandage on the top of his nose. The bridge of his nose is swollen and bleeding. He's got the skull cap on, the black Steelers winter hat, the way Pesci has that tight black hat on in Home Alone 1 in the original. And he's got this dead look in his eye. He looks cold. He looks like, I bet you're wondering how I ended up here. He looks like I shouldn't have done this. I should have retired. What was the point of this? They lose. They're 6-6. They get smoked. It feels like they're falling apart, and he is just beat like a pulp on the sideline. He does have that dead look in his eye of, why did I do that? Why did I come back for this? So the Bills win 26-7. I have that Bills future to win the division. They are 2 games back of New England, but as we've gone over, right now they don't have the tiebreaker. They've got 1 game left with New England. So if you assume the Bills are going to win that game, then they'd still be a game back, and that Patriots schedule is so light. You know what I need? I need some sort of, whatever the equivalent of the Panthers over the Rams yesterday, that kind of shocking loss that I didn't expect them to have. That's what I need from New England. Hey, it could come tonight. I could use... It is the Giants, the 2-win Giants in New England, 2-10 Giants, and the 10-2 Patriots tonight in New England. I could use a stunning Jameis Winston road upset. Go eat a W tonight, Jameis. Go eat a dub. Because if you get that, then that game coming up in New England, I think, right? Did they lose at home to the Patriots? Or are they at home against New England? They are, it's in New England. And the Bills have now Cincy at home this coming weekend, but Joe Burrow's back, so that's not a walk in the park anymore. Then they're in New England on December 14th. But if I can get a random Patriots loss to a bad team, and the Bills can keep winning, and then you're only a game back when you play them, maybe you still have a chance there. But of the 3 division bets we have going, that I right now do not have any, that none of them are winners right now. I think I feel the best about the Texans, then I'd put the Niners, and then I'd put the Bills. That Bills one I didn't think would be in that kind of peril at all. But they get to 8-4 with that win. Chargers over the Raiders, 31-14. And then a big night for you, boy. Broncos in overtime. Pretty entertaining game with Marcus Mariota as the Commander quarterback now. Broncos get an overtime win. Commanders go for 2 at the end, and they don't get it. And the Broncos hang on to win 27-26. So the Broncos get to 10-2. Not the Denver Broncos. The Broncos get to, can I find that? Is that a Simpsons clip? Not the Denver Broncos. But, oh, here we go. I forget what episode this is.
Telegram.
Project Arcturus couldn't have succeeded without you. This will get you a little closer to that dream of yours. It's not the Dallas Cowboys, but it's a start. Drop me a line if you're on the East Coast. Hank Scorpio. Oh, the Denver Broncos.
I think owning the Denver Broncos is pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, explain to me why it isn't.
You just don't understand football.
So the Denver Broncos. But as we've been over and over and over, I have a large bet that is now going to become a cashed bet. Now, like the Badger bet on season wins, they have to play all their games. So remember we talked about for the Badgers, the only way to avoid losing that bet is for the power to get cut at one of those games. So that money is not in the account yet. All of the games have to get played, the regular season games. But that is a cashed ticket, or will be. Broncos win. They are 10-2. I had the over heavy 5-unit play on the Broncos over 9.5 wins. That's going to hit. I still have the future on them to win the AFC West, which they're pretty good right now. 2 games up, and they've got the Raiders, I think, next week on the road. So you think that's probably going to be another win, hopefully. But yeah, that over 9.5 was the biggest future bet we had. That cashes with a 27-26 win against the Commanders last night. It's just nice to have that one in the pending bets where, you know, it's almost better in a weird way. Like, if that money just hit my account this morning, that would be fun, too. But there's just something about knowing that that's going to be coming, like knowing you have that soft landing on the way of getting that over bet. And if they hit, I've got the future on them to make the playoffs, too. That's not a certainty yet, but that will be. And I think I got that at minus 125 to begin the year. So the over's going to hit. The to make the playoffs bet certainly going to hit. And now the only one that's a little more in question is the to win the AFC West at plus 185. I made that bet about 5 or 6 weeks ago. So it's going to be a profitable year for us on the Denver Broncos as they win last night, 27-26. Yeah, I could really use a Jameis Winston. That would really bring me back to life in the AFC East if we could make that happen. Because that Patriots schedule, they have the 2-win Giants tonight. Then they have a bye week, a late bye week. Then they host Buffalo. Then they're at Baltimore. I don't know what to make of Baltimore right now. Then they're at New York against the Jets. Yuck. And at home to end the year against Miami. I guess Miami's improved, so that gives me a little hope you could pull an upset off there. But at home, final game of the year, division might be on the line in that game, or a 1 seed might be on the line in that game. Tough to envision them losing that game. Now, I do have that future bet on Vrabel to be coach of the year, and I have it on Ben Johnson to be coach of the year. If either one of those hit, I hit 4-1 or 5-1, depending on which one hits, and those are both looking really good right now. I think Steichen, the head coach for the Colts, was the only guy I was worried about there. Now they've lost 2 in a row, and they kind of seem to be falling off. I would think now, I don't know who else would be in the running for that. I think I've got bets on both of them. I would think Ben Johnson and Vrabel are 1, 2 in some order to win Coach of the Year. And which, regardless of which one hits, we're going to end up either 4x or 5x our money on that one. So that's looking pretty good too. So I guess I have that going. If the Patriots win the division, at least I have that Vrabel Coach of the Year bet. If they win the AFC West and are the 1 or 2 seed, he is definitely going to win Coach of the Year. So at least I do have that soft landing as well. But yeah, that Broncos bet, that was nice. To have that in your back pocket with a full month of football left, yes, please. All right, let's talk about the Badgers. Then we'll hit a little bit on the Bucks and get out for the day. We're also going to just touch, when we get done with this Badger conversation, I do just want to talk real quickly about this Lane Kiffin situation at Ole Miss. This is wild. So let's talk about the Badgers first up. As we went over on Friday, having now won a couple of games against top 25 teams and rushing the field in both games, you feel good about that. You got the win against Washington, the win against Illinois. Brett Bielema being there makes that one a little sweeter. So after a season of misplays and injuries and questionable play calling and just a lot of stuff, a brutal schedule, which we talked about, 7 top 25 teams. 4 of them are college football playoff teams. 3 of the 4 are top 5 teams. 3 of the 4 are top 5 teams. So that is a daunting schedule for any team. Yeah, Oregon's 4. Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, Oregon 4, and Alabama is sitting at number 10 right now. So 7 top 25 matchups. 4 of those are right now in the college football playoffs, and 3 of those 4 are inside the top 4. That is a murderer's row, as they say in the scheduling game. So a lot has happened this year, even with the schedule. And even with the Billy Edwards Jr. injury, it has been a disappointing year for the Badgers. But having played hard on the road against Oregon and losing a close game that was close at halftime and really close entering the fourth quarter too, having beaten number 23 Washington at home, having hung around at least for a half at number 2 Indiana, and then beating a top 25 Illinois team, you had a chance to end the year on a positive note. You win on Saturday. You get back Paul Bunyan's axe. You end the year 5-7, which, again, is only a half game off where the over-under was at 5.5. You would only miss it by 1 game. I think if that were to happen, you're feeling pretty good heading into 2026, knowing that Fickell's the guy now. That has been solidified and was solidified before the Washington game. Knowing that, per Ted Kellner, one of the biggest donors to the program, there will be a large injection of cash into the program that will put, in his words, they were in the bottom third of the Big Ten in terms of money spent. This will now be in the top third of the conference in terms of money spent. So you've got that, you've got the money, and then you look at next year's schedule, and like we always say, a lot can happen between now and next August. But right now, I would think Notre Dame is a preseason top 10. You have them at Lambeau Field in week 1. You have Penn State on the schedule. And I think it's at Penn State. Let's just go Badger football schedule 2026. You have Penn State, and even though they were a preseason top 5, I think, or top 10 this year, and they fell off and they fired their head coach, that feels like a university that is going to bounce back quickly. But your Big Ten home opponents are Michigan State, Rutgers, Minnesota, USC. USC probably a top 25 team, but probably not a top 10 team. Big Ten away opponents, Iowa, maybe a fringe top 25, Maryland, Penn State, who knows? Purdue has been bad for a while, and UCLA, not sure what's going to happen there. But that is a much softer schedule. But the origin of my positivity was going to come from winning these last 2 games against Illinois and against Minnesota. They got the job done against Illinois, did not get the job done Saturday. And I got to tell you, I don't understand what was going on Saturday with the offensive play calling. The weather was miserable, as it was in a lot of the Midwest with that snowstorm that was coming through our area. That was also hitting Minnesota. That was hitting, did you see the Northwestern Illinois game? That was a debacle of a snow game. If you like sitting at home in front of a fire and having a cocktail or an Irish coffee and watching football with that snow element, it was a great day Saturday. But you're on the road at Minnesota, and you feel like evenly matched teams for the most part. And what you've done in the last 3 or 4 weeks to kind of reestablish yourself a little bit is run the ball effectively. We saw it especially against Illinois with Darion Dupree going for 130. I think the team went for 230 or 240 in that win against Illinois. And I'll grant you the weather conditions are different, but wouldn't it stand to reason that in a bad weather game with the wind howling and the snow coming down and a slick surface on that kind of fake artificial, or that you don't have to say fake and artificial, artificial turf or field turf situation, wouldn't it stand to reason anyway because of the way you've been playing recently that you want to run the game or commit to the run? But then especially in those weather conditions, it felt like it was conducive to, okay, let's just run the ball a ton. And they kind of got away from it. Now, I realize in that first half, the run game was not effective. It wasn't effective all game, but I think I would have stuck with that in what was a one-possession game for the majority of the game. If you break off one big run, you're cooking. They go 28 carries, 86 yards, 3.1 yards a carry. Not ideal. Dupree had 12 for 51. He was 4.3 a carry. Jackson Aker was 4 for 20, 5 yards a carry. But at halftime, they make the switch at quarterback. So Carter Smith got the start, the freshman. He's not the best thrower of the football, I have to say, which is not good as a quarterback. But he was 5 of 8 for 20 yards and a touchdown. And that touchdown he threw to Aker, which initially they ruled incomplete. Then they went to review. One of the best tippy-toe catches of the year. That was the best tippy-toe catch of the year for the Badgers. But I'm saying one of the best in college football from Jackson Aker on Saturday. And Smith put it right where it had to be. That was a short-range target, but he got it there. So Smith was 5 of 8 for a touchdown, only 20 yards passing on the day. And then in the second half, they bring in Hunter Simmons. And I'm thinking, okay, for a drive maybe just to see, because for as bad as Hunter Simmons has been, he does seem to have a better arm than Carter Smith, or at least he's able to push the ball downfield more. Whether he's throwing it to your team or to the other team is a different debate for a different day maybe, but he can at least put some air under it and push the ball downfield. So they bring in Hunter Simmons, and it turns out that he's brought in for the remainder of the second half. And at times, they move the ball all right, but he also throws crippling interceptions, one of which, as they were driving into Minnesota territory, he puts it right on. Who was that guy? Who had the interception? But he was everywhere. John Nestor. I got so tired of hearing the name John Nestor on Saturday. He made about 1 million tackles, it felt like, had a sack, and I think 2 picks on the day. But that one where they were inside the Minnesota 30-yard line or 35-yard line, and were kind of moving the ball okay to that point. And I'm pretty sure at that point it was still a 10-7 game. So you were right in it. What was the score when he threw that pick? It was, you were still 10-7, and you were in the middle of a 9-play, 58-yard drive. And if you get in the end zone there with the weather the way it is, take a 14-10 lead, that might be enough to win that game. And then he throws that crippling interception. Nestor returns it all the way inside the 20, and 3 plays later, the Gophers are in for a touchdown. And when you're down 17-7 in those weather conditions, you pretty much knew it was over at that point. They had their chances to try to move the ball the rest of the game, had 3 more possessions, but just couldn't get anything done. And they just threw the ball a ton in that second half. Like, again, I understand that the running game was not eating up huge chunks of yards in the first half, so you can get frustrated and move on and try to push the ball downfield or mix things up a bit. But to then kind of commit to an aerial attack in that weather situation made no sense to me, especially when you don't have a quarterback. It's not like you have this quarterback that, you go back into the annals of Badger history. It's not like you got Brooks Bollinger out there, or hell, even Joe Stocco, or Jim Sorgi, or Joel Stave. I may have messed those names up. But, it's not like you have a quarterback that you trust to throw the ball. Your problem has been you don't have a quarterback after Billy Edwards Jr. went down. So to make that decision to start throwing the ball aggressively in those weather conditions against a decent defense on the road when you don't have a quarterback you trust just seemed like odd choices across the board for the Badgers. And they fall 17-7 in their regular season finale. So they had a chance if they would have won on Saturday. About a handful of 5 and 7 teams end up getting a bowl bid because a lot of stuff happens and there are just too many bowl games. You need teams to fill them. So they needed a win on Saturday to make that happen. Then they needed about 8 or 9 other things to happen. I don't know if those things happen or not, but they had a chance, in theory, had they won on Saturday, to still get to a bowl game. That goes out the window, obviously, with a 17-7 loss. And now I don't know how I feel. I was really starting to feel pretty good coming off of that Illinois game. Given how they looked on the road against Oregon, you beat Washington. You played okay at number 2 Indiana, a national title contender. You beat another top 25 team the week prior. And then you kind of lay a turd there at the end of the game. It wasn't like the 37-0 loss to Iowa or the 27-10 loss at home to Maryland. They were competitive, and they were kind of in it for the majority of the day. But to lose after building some momentum, to lose a rivalry game in the snow when you had a chance to end the year with at least some kind of exclamation point was sort of a letdown, a Price is Right fail horn for Fickell and the boys. Now, Fickell talked about post-game how proud he was of the team. They overcame adversity all year, the injuries, the depleted roster, the schedule they had to deal with. And I think that's all true. But at the end of the day, Who is the guy, I forget who it was, that says your record is your record. You are who your record says you are. And despite the fact that you played a boatload of talented teams, you end the year at 4-8 and at 2-7 in the Big Ten. So where do they end in terms of the standings? Not good. I know that. But where are they? They are 14th of 18 teams. 2-7. Michigan State 1-8. Maryland 1-8. Maryland's only win was against the... I didn't realize that. The only Big Ten win Maryland had was against the Badgers. Now I'm getting angry again. Now I'm starting to lose the positivity. I thought Maryland was middle of the pack or at least a game or two up on the Badgers. The only Maryland Big Ten win was against Wisconsin. All right, so Wisconsin 14th, then Michigan State, Maryland, and Purdue did not have a win. They went 0-9 and finished 2-10 overall. Even with your quarterback going down, even with the schedule, a disappointing year for Fickell and the Badgers in year 3. So they go from year 1, 7-5, or 6-6, right? Year 1, they were 6-6. Year 2, 5-7. Year 3, 4-8. That's not heading in the right direction. But I'm going to try to be as positive as possible here and look at the 2 top 25 wins and the way they played at Oregon and the way they played at Indiana. And I guess you just try to neuralize the Minnesota game out of your brain or write it off because of weather or whatever. Weird play calling. And you look toward next year with a softer schedule, hopefully a lot more money, and a chance to get to 7. I mean, you look at that schedule, you hope 6-7 wins next year. 7 wins would be great. Obviously, the biggest hole they have to fill, if everybody's back, which in the NIL era is never something that you can rest on, that, the young core defenders now, Posa, Catalano, they're all saying the right things right now, but it's easy to say that as the season ends and then 2 months down the road or whenever the portal opens, somebody might offer you a bag of money that you can't turn down. But I feel like the defense has been pretty good and was good again on Saturday, holding them to 17 points, and one of those touchdowns was not their fault. That was after that pick we talked about, so you set them up inside the 15-yard line. Going to be tough to stop them there. I feel good about the front 7. I feel good about a lot of the young defenders. I don't really know, is Darion Dupree back? I mean, who's the starting tailback next year? I do feel like the offensive line got better, and we talked about that coming out of the Illinois game. They didn't really show that on Saturday, but more often than not, in the final 4 or 5 weeks, they had some consistency and some cohesiveness with the same 5 guys out there, young guys growing together. I feel okay about that, but the glaring issue you have is at quarterback. Some of that's not their fault. You had the injuries to Mordecai. You had the injury to Tyler Van Dyke. You had the injury this year to Billy Edwards Jr., so your preferred quarterback in each of the 3 years ends up getting hurt early in the year and is basically out for the year. Mordecai actually played a ton compared to Van Dyke and Billy Edwards Jr., but with this infusion of cash you've got coming, you've got to find the right quarterback. And honestly, you probably need to find 2 quarterbacks. I don't think Carter Smith showed me anything other than he's gritty. He likes to run. I think he's a leader of men. But we said the same thing about Braden Locke last year. I mean, there's a big difference in college football when you have a guy that guys like to play for, and can this guy not only lead our team, but can he actually play the position consistently and well? I think there's a lot of guys in college football that guys love playing for that have the enthusiasm that would lead you into battle, but are you slaughtered when you run into battle, or can you actually win that battle? That's the question. But that's obviously where most of this money that you're going to see put into the Badger football program, a lot of it's going to be spent on not just one quarterback, I would think, but you want a couple of quarterbacks to be in there for a real competition, a veteran maybe, or a second or third year guy in there too. And if you want to throw Carter Smith in there and say he has a chance, fine. Maybe he moves on. Who knows? Maybe he finds a better fit and more playing time with a different program as well. I don't think he showed me anything other than I like his tenacity and I like his enthusiasm and energy. But he didn't show us anything in the passing game that would make me think he's the guy next year or has a chance to be the guy next year. So they're going to have to spend a lot of money, a lot of Schrute bucks on trying to find at least 1 and probably 2 or maybe even 3 quarterbacks to put that room a step up from where it's been. Hopefully they stay healthy. And then you can kind of see how this thing looks with your preferred quarterback playing the majority of the year. But that's the number 1 spot, and obviously quarterback's a pretty big deal in football, so got to get that figured out. Now, I just want to touch real quick on this Lane Kiffin situation. I don't know how much of this you were following or not. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin has been coaching at Ole Miss this is his 6th year at Ole Miss. It is one of the heritage programs. They haven't been very good for a long time. Eli Manning went there. That's probably their claim to fame, right, in the past 20, 25 years. So Lane Kiffin who is a great offensive mind for college football. We saw it not work out at the NFL level in 1 year or 2 or a year and a half with the Raiders. And I think maybe he was an offensive assistant somewhere in the NFL too earlier in his career. But in college football, he has been a great offensive mind, an excellent offensive coordinator at Alabama with Nick Saban, and then that opened a lot of doors for him, but he's a bounce-around guy. He goes to a lot of schools. Whatever school is offering him the biggest contract, the biggest amount of money, that's the school he has loyalty to, and that's been his deal his entire coaching career. If you bring Lane Kiffin in to coach, you're probably going to see your offense get better. You're probably going to see your bottom line increase, the wins, losses increase. But he could be out the door after a year or two if somebody says something nice to him, if they throw something shiny at him. He could be gone. He is not a guy you're going to bring in to lead your program for a decade or 15 years. That's just not who he is. So he's bounced around. He was at Tennessee for a while, then he went back to Alabama as an assistant, then he went to Florida Atlantic and succeeded there, and ultimately he landed at Ole Miss, and this is the longest he's been anywhere. So Ole Miss is having a historic year. They won the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State on Saturday, and that got them to 11-1, and they are going to the college football playoffs. They are a top 10 team right now. They don't have to play in the SEC championship game, so they are headed to the college football playoffs. And there had been rumors heading into Saturday, that game against Mississippi State, that Lane Kiffin was going to be offered the LSU job after they moved on from Brian Kelly. And it sounds like what happened behind the scenes is that Lane Kiffin wants the LSU job because they're going to pay him $100+ million a year, and Ole Miss can't pay him that. He wants to go to LSU, but he also wants to coach Ole Miss in the college football playoffs because they've been really good this year, and in theory, they have a chance to win a national title. So he wanted it all. He wanted the cake, and he wanted to bake the cake and eat it too. And once Ole Miss caught wind that he was going to leave them for LSU, which is in the same conference, so this is a guy that's going right down the road to a team that is a direct competitor. Once they caught wind that he was going to go to LSU, understandably from their perspective, Ole Miss is saying, well, we can't let this guy coach in these big college football playoff games if he's just going to lose us. And he's trying to take the coaches with him to LSU. He's trying to take players with him to LSU. There was so much drama behind the scenes. And then finally on Sunday morning, they had a press conference, or a plane from LSU picked Lane Kiffin up and his assistant coaches up. And like Brett Favre back in the day, the plane landed and they fly out of there like it's the last plane out of Saigon, and they head to LSU. So he is going to be LSU's new head coach, and Ole Miss right now is sitting with this 11-1 record, and they're going to be in a college football playoff game in 2 weeks, and they're trying to find an interim coach now. Meanwhile, Kiffin is taking his assistants with him, like from what I understand, threatening them behind the scenes, saying, you can't stay here to coach in the college football playoffs. If you don't leave with me right now on this plane, you are not going to work with me at LSU. There is nothing like SEC football, college football drama. It is better than any Kardashian show. It is better than any Real Housewives show. It's better than any of that. So that was all literally going on behind the scenes. But I understand what Ole Miss is doing, and you can't have a guy that's leaving you. He's leaving the relationship. And then what he wants to do is stay together for the holidays. That's the sell. I think actually SVP had some kind of analogy like that on SportsCenter last night, where they're asking for, Lane Kiffin's asking for a divorce, but Christmas is going to be here in 3 weeks, and we don't want to ruin the kids' Christmas, so let's stay together for that, then we'll break up. And Ole Miss is saying, no, that's not how this is going to work. You are either here or you're not. So if you're gone, we'll figure out Christmas with the people that we have in the house right now, and if it ruins their Christmas, you did that. So it has just been a fascinating subplot. Kiffin ends up accepting the LSU job. He's gone. And then Ole Miss fans, when they caught wind of this, went out to the airport at Ole Miss, where the LSU plan lands to take Lane Kiffin out of there. Now, there's going to be some language on here, but listen to what they're screaming at Lane as he goes from his SUV to the plane. I think they're unhappy. I think Ole Miss fans and Eagles fans need to commiserate a little bit, have a little group therapy session. But it's just so weird. The NCAA, if it's even an entity in the next 10 years, which I think is very much in doubt, but they have to figure this out, okay? You have to have some kind of moratorium where you cannot interview anybody or try to poach anybody, even if it's behind the scenes. I mean, I guess that's always going to happen. But you have to have some rules in place. This is insane. The 6th-ranked team in the country that is 11-1, their head coach leaves them a week before the college football playoffs start. That cannot be allowed. You have to find some way to legislate that out of the game. Like I said, I mean, I guess it's always going to happen behind the scenes and unofficial meetings and blocked phone calls and whatever. But there has to be a way where this could have been kept on the down low between LSU and Lane Kiffin. And Kiffin could have just coached this team through this game and then figure it out after that. Rick Pitino had a tweet like that last night that said, this is insane. And I think he prefaced it by saying, I'm not taking any shots at college football, but this would be like me having the number 3 team in the country heading into March Madness and quitting on Selection Sunday and going somewhere else, which is true. It's madness. I can't believe it's a real thing. But now Ole Miss, coming off of their best regular season in program history, which, again, is a school that's been around for about 115 years or playing college football for about 115 years, they now are the 6th-ranked team in the country with an interim coach, and they've got assistant coaches leaving. They may have players leaving before that game. It's just nuts. There's got to be a better way. They have to find out a better way than what has happened. But the drama has been delicious behind the scenes. Like Lane Kiffin threatening his assistant coaches, if you don't get on this plane now, I will find somebody else for LSU. You cannot stay here. That's what the acrimony level was at between Ole Miss and the administration and the SID and the chancellor with Lane Kiffin as this was all dissolving after their win on Saturday. Crazy. All right, let's hit on the Bucks real quick, then we'll get out for the day. Giannis came back. Giannis back earlier than we thought, so a little less than 2 weeks. He returned Black Friday in New York. Bucks lost that game. They led that game at halftime. Some of the calls, and one day, I know we haven't had time recently, and I know we've hinted at it, but at some point, we are going to have the discussion of, is the NBA trying to frustrate Giannis out of Milwaukee by never giving him calls in a game? He has always gotten a bad whistle for a superstar caliber player, always. But it has been egregious this year. And after all of the rumors all offseason, all of the fake made-up rumors from Shams that he was going to leave, it feels like the NBA tried to fake rumor mill him out of Milwaukee again. And when that didn't work and Giannis again is staying in Milwaukee this year, now it feels like behind closed doors, Adam Silver has said, enough is enough. He's been in this market that we don't like for 14 years. They won their title. Now it's time to frustrate him out of the franchise. Because if you watch that game on Friday, there was a drive he had down the lane. He literally gets arm barred by Mikal Bridges. Like, arm hooked around arm, ripping his rotator cuff out of his shoulder socket. And they call a foul. It was a clear flagrant foul, maybe even a flagrant 2. They go to review, call it a common foul. And then Jalen Brunson all game long, if you breathe on him, if you even graze his jersey, it's a foul call. And this has been happening all year. And it's, like I said, it's always been bad. He has never gotten the whistle of a guy who's won multiple MVPs and Defensive Player of the Year and Finals MVPs and has a ring. One of the all-time greats, one of the living, breathing, playing all-time greats. He has always gotten a bad whistle even before this year, but it feels like now it's at another level. And the only thing I can come up with is what we talked about before the year. This is a trial run for Giannis. His contract, he's got one more year, I think, left on his deal at the end of this year. And we're at a real crossroads at the end of this year as to whether or not he's signing another extension or he is actually going to legitimately ask for a trade to move on to another organization. This is a huge year as it relates to that, and the NBA knows that too. And honest to God, I started to see these conspiracy theories thrown out on Twitter at the beginning of the year when some of this stuff started happening, and I kind of scoffed at it. But the more games I watch, and the more I watch Giannis get drop-kicked on his way to the basket and get no call, and then on the rare times that he does get a call and it should be a flagrant, he never gets the flagrant. And then on the other end, if he touches anybody, it's a foul on him. I'm starting to believe it. I am starting to believe that might be a thing. So they lose in New York 118-109. That is their 7th loss in a row. So from 8-5 to 8-12. That's how math works. Then they came home with the 2-win Brooklyn or 3-win Brooklyn Nets on Saturday. A game they absolutely had to get, and they did. 116-99. Light crowd on Saturday because of that snowstorm in Milwaukee. I think it was about half full at Fiserv, but that was more snowstorm related. I would think even with a 7-game losing streak, on the Saturday night of Thanksgiving weekend, that would have been a sellout, but that snowstorm was humming at that point. But they get the win. Giannis had 29 points in 19 minutes on Saturday. Let me say that again. 29 points in 19 minutes. He went over 21,000 points for his career. And they also got Kevin Porter Jr. back on Saturday, and that was a real injection of life for this team. He's been out since the first quarter of game one. And he just brings you so much. Attacking the basket, knocking down threes, athletic defender, 25 years old. He was going to be the starting point guard. Now, Ryan Rollins has kind of taken that spot, and with how good Rollins has played since Porter went down, I don't know how you take Rollins out of the starting five. He's averaging like 18 points a game. So the starting five on Saturday was Giannis, Miles Turner, KPJ, AJ Green, and Ryan Rollins. I love that starting five. Bobby coming off the bench, Kuzma coming off the bench, and Gary Trent coming off the bench. I think that's the ideal situation. But this team, you obviously miss Giannis when he was down, one of the all-time great players in NBA history. You're going to miss him when he does not play. But I do think they've missed Kevin Porter Jr. almost as much. And he has been out. He got hurt in quarter one of game one and just came back Saturday. And the second that game started, you could see how much he brings in terms of speed and athleticism to this team. So now you're back to fully healthy, and you've got to stack up some wins now. 7-game losing streak puts you behind the 8 ball. They win on Saturday, so they are 9-12. They were 8-5. They are 9-12 now, and on the outside looking in of the play-in tournament picture, you've got some very winnable games coming up starting tonight. 2-win Wizards team in Washington, and I think Chris Middleton, I think he's playing, right? I don't think he's been hurt. Let's go to the Wizards stats quick. They're a young team. They've got some young talent there. Well, Middleton, 14 games he's played. Middleton is averaging less than 10 points a game. Oh, it shouldn't have ended like this for Chris Middleton. I don't want it to end like this. Oh, he did play at Indiana on Friday, so I would guess he'll be out there tonight. But this is a 2-win team. You're coming off of a 7-game losing streak. You finally broke that up by beating a 3-win Nets team. You have to beat a 2-win tanking Wizards team tonight. Get yourself to 10-12 and start to make up some ground here with a lighter schedule in December. But that is tonight, a 6 o'clock tip time in Washington this evening. All right, that'll do it for us here on your Monday morning. So, I am on vacation Thursday, Friday, Monday. We will be doing a prorated podcast on Wednesday, just to make sure we get you a couple podcasts this week. We will preview Packers, Bears, and obviously recap any quick Bucks news, but there won't be a lot between now and then. But we'll mainly be previewing Packers, Bears on Wednesday. Then we will not have a podcast on Monday. So regardless of what happens in that huge game on Sunday, I will literally be in the air on Monday morning. So it would be kind of comical to see what would happen around me. How over under 7.5 minutes, well, under I would think, until I'd get punched in the face. And it might be by my wife or my mom or her mom. I don't know. So that is an impossibility on Monday. My guess is we will do a Tuesday podcast. I guess there's a world that would exist if everything is on time, which you never know flying this time of year. If everything is on time, maybe a Monday afternoon podcast, but I'm thinking more likely a Tuesday podcast, whether a victory or not victory recap. But I would think in all likelihood do that on Tuesday. But it's going to be a weird podcast schedule. It's vacation season for everybody. So a prorated Wednesday podcast, then I would think a Tuesday podcast next week, then a regular Friday next week, to stay on the 2 podcast a week schedule. We'll chat with you Wednesday. Have a happy, safe work week. We'll chat with you then.
Gets double teamed. Costa still in trouble and sacked anyway. Guess who got there? Double team didn't matter. Parsons and Enagbari.
Got jacked up!
Looking, floating for the corner. Waits, he is! Is he in? Waiting for the signal. Yes, he's in! Touchdown, Packers!
Scared money don't make money. So, sometimes you gotta shoot.
Here's Love. Looking corner. Throwing that way. It is caught by Romeo Dobbs. Touchdown, Packers.
Oh, Romeo.
Love loads up. Going deep. Christian Watson down there. He's got it. Touchdown, Packers.
That's the power of love. That's the power of love.
On the fake, Love throwing it. Wicks makes the catch. Lunging. He's in. Number 2 for Wicks and another one for Green Bay. Woo! But they'll take it. Look out! Goff is smoke. Guess who? Micah Parsons.
Are you saying pow? What are you saying?
3rd and goal. Goff. Pressure. In trouble. Hit and dropped. It's It's Micah Parsons again.
I love the Green Bay Packers, man.
Love looking off his back foot, throws the left side.
Yes!
Makes a leaping catch at the 30-yard line number. First down, Green Bay. There is your dagger. A Turkey Day dagger right through the Lions.
Great win for the Green Bay Packers. These fans deserve it.